Let's say you find a buy-to-let property listed for £240,000. It rents for around £1,250 per month. At first glance, that might look like a decent deal. The rent sounds strong, the prices feel manageable, and the numbers seem to work. But the real question is not, does the rent look good? The real question is, does the property still work after costs, tax, voids, and risks are included? In this video, I'll walk through how to decide whether a buy-to-let property is actually a good deal. The biggest mistake new landlords make is judging a deal too quickly. They see the purchase price, compare it with the rent, and assume the property works. For a buy-to-let deal, it's not just about rent compared with price. It's about the full financial picture. A property can look attractive on paper, but feel uncomfortable to own if the monthly margin is too tight. So the aim is not to find the deal that looks good at first glance. The aim is to find one that still makes sense after realistic assumptions are made. The rent is your starting point. If the property rents for £1,250 per month, that gives an annual rental income of £15,000. That sounds like a solid number. But rent is revenue, not profit. From that rent, you still need to pay the mortgage, maintenance, insurance, possible agents' fees, void periods, and tax. So rent tells you the potential income, but does not tell you whether the deal is actually profitable. Next, compare the rent with mortgage cost. If the mortgage is £800 per month, then £1,250 rent minus £800 mortgage leaves £450 before other costs. That £450 is the first margin. It shows whether the property has breathing space before you add everything else. But this number is still not the profit. It is only the early stage surplus before the real operating costs are included. This is where many people stop too early. Now you need to add running costs. Maintenance, insurance, repairs, and management all reduce the real surplus. Even if maintenance averages only £100 to £150 per month, that makes a noticeable difference. Your £450 margin might quickly fall closer to £300. And that matters because the property needs to work in normal conditions, not just in a perfect month. A good deal has enough margin to absorb ordinary costs without becoming stressful. A good deal also needs to survive void periods. If the property is empty for 1 month, you lose over 8% of your annual rent. But the mortgage and other costs still continue. So a property that looks profitable with full occupancy can feel very different with 1 or 2 empty months. This is why experienced landlords allow for voids in their numbers. A good deal should not depend on the property being occupied every single day of the year. Now stress test the property. Ask what happens if interest rates rise, repairs are higher than expected, or the property is empty for longer than planned. This is where weak deals start to show. If a small change wipes out the surplus, this deal may be too tight. But if the property still works with slightly worse assumptions, it is more resilient. A good buy-to-let deal is not one that only works in ideal conditions. It's one that survives realistic problems. Cash flow is one of the most important parts of the decision. It is the money left each month after the regular costs are paid. Strong cash flow gives you flexibility, and weak cash flow creates pressure. If a property only leaves £50 or £100 per month after realistic costs, it may technically work, but it may not feel comfortable to own. A good deal should leave enough margin to handle normal landlord costs without relying on constant top-ups from your own income. A good deal also depends on how much cash you need to put in. The deposit is only one part. You also need stamp duty, legal fees, mortgage fees, and money to prepare the property. If a £60,000 deposit becomes £75,000 total cash required, your return calculation changes. This is important because many people calculate returns only using the deposit. But the real return should be based on the full amount of cash invested. Return on cash is a useful way to judge the deal. If you invest £75,000 and the property produces £3,600 per year before tax, that is a different return from investing £60,000. The more cash you put in, the more carefully you need to assess whether the return justifies it. This does not mean a higher cash investment is bad. Sometimes more cash creates a safer cash flow, but you need to understand what return you are actually getting on the money tied up. Numbers matter, but location matters too. A property with a strong cash flow in a weak location may carry more risk. Tenant demand, local employment, transport links, schools, and the condition of surrounding housing all affect long-term performance. A good deal is not just a spreadsheet. It also needs to be a property that people actually want to rent. Strong rental demand makes the numbers more reliable. Weak demand makes everything more uncertain. Tenant quality is often underestimated. A property may achieve a higher rent, but if it attracts unreliable tenants or frequent turnover, the real deal may suffer. Higher rent is not always better if it comes with a higher risk. A slightly lower rent from a stable tenant can sometimes be more valuable than chasing the maximum rent every year. Good landlords think about the quality and reliability of income, not just the headline amount. That is part of judging whether a deal is genuinely strong. A good deal also needs to account for the building itself. Some properties are cheaper to buy because they need more work. Older properties may have higher maintenance costs. Flats may have service charges or leasehold issues. Houses may need roof repairs, boiler replacements, or ongoing upgrades. If you ignore these costs, the deal may look better than it really is. A good property is not necessarily the cheapest one. It's one where the long-term costs are understood. Capital growth can be valuable, but it should not be the only reason the deal works. If the property only makes sense because you assume prices will rise, the deal is more speculative. A stronger approach is to make sure the property works on income and cash flow first. Then any capital growth becomes an additional benefit, not the whole strategy. This is especially important in a market where costs are higher and margins are tighter. The deal needs to stand on its own. A simple way to judge a deal is to ask 5 questions. Does the rent cover the mortgage and realistic costs? Does the property still work with a void period? Is there enough cash flow to feel comfortable? Is the total cash required justified by the return? And is the property in a location with a reliable rental demand? If the answer to those questions is yes, you may be looking at a stronger deal. If not, the property may be riskier than it first appears. A good buy-to-let deal is not defined by one number. It's not just the rent, the yield, or the purchase price. It's the whole picture. Income, costs, cash flow, risk, location, tax, and long-term maintenance all matter. The best deals are usually not the ones that look exciting at first glance. They are the ones that still make sense after careful analysis. This is the Practical Landlord.